Welcome back, everyone. Week 3 already. Can you believe it?
Time sure flies when you're talking classic cars.
It really does. This is the Bluewater Auto Restoration Podcast, your weekly stop for everything classic car related.
We release new podcasts every Saturday morning.
So be sure to tune in then for all your classic car news.
And this week, we're taking a deep dive into historic Route 66.
Route 66 for classic car fans.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I know what you might be thinking. It's just an old road, right?
Right.
But trust me, Route 66 is so much more than just some old pavement.
Oh, I bet. In what way?
Well, it's a true time capsule of American car culture.
Interesting.
It's like a ribbon of history that's seen the evolution of the automobile firsthand.
Wow, I like that. A ribbon of history.
And it really is a testament to that enduring spirit of the open road.
Okay, I'm starting to get it, but help me understand this connection between Route 66 and classic cars.
Well, think about it. Route 66 was the main artery for those epic road trips back in the golden age of automobiles.
You're talking like the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Exactly. When those chrome beauties we all love were rolling off assembly lines and hitting the open road for the first time.
So you're saying it's like a 2,400-mile-long museum of car history.
You got it. Stretching all the way from Chicago to the California coast.
Incredible.
And it's not even just about the cars themselves. It's about all the people who traveled this legendary highway.
Oh yeah, all the stories from over the years.
All the businesses that popped up along the way.
And don't forget all the roadside attractions.
Exactly. All those stories that unfolded on those long stretches of asphalt.
And you know we love a good story here. So let's fire up the time machine and head back to the 1920s, when Route 66 was just starting to make its mark.
All right, so picture this. It's 1926, and the Bureau of Public Roads is rolling out the nation's first federal highway system.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
America is in the middle of its love affair with the automobile, and everyone's realizing that a coast-to-coast highway is becoming more and more necessary.
So Route 66 wasn't some brand new superhighway, was it?
Nope, not quite.
What was it then?
It was actually put together using a bunch of existing local and state roads.
So it was like a patchwork of asphalt.
Yeah, pretty much. Each section with its own little quirks and history.
A real hodgepodge of a highway. I bet that made for some interesting driving, especially back then.
Yeah.
So how did it go from this patchwork of local roads to, the Mother Road, this symbol of American travel and adventure?
Well, a lot of the credit has to go to the U.S. 66 Highway Association.
What did they do?
They were geniuses at marketing. They promoted Route 66 as the shortest, best, and most scenic route across the whole country.
Shortest, best, most scenic. I mean, that's the classic car road trip trifecta.
You got it.
But they didn't stop at catchy slogans, did they?
No way. They organized tons of events to really get Route 66 on the map.
Like what?
Well, one of the most famous was the Bunyan Derby back in 1928.
What was that?
Oh, it was this grueling foot race from Los Angeles all the way to New York City, and a big chunk of it followed Route 66.
A foot race. Oof. Talk about dedication. I can only imagine the blisters.
Yeah.
But hey, I bet it definitely got people talking about Route 66.
For sure, it definitely did.
And I imagine all those runners worked up quite an appetite, huh?
Oh, you know it. And speaking of appetites, that brings us to one of the best things about Route 66. All the businesses that popped up along the way.
All those classic diners,
Yes.
motor courts, trading posts.
Exactly. You know, those places that just became synonymous with Route 66.
I'm picturing a place like, I don't know, Roy's Motel and Cafe.
Oh, now you're talking. Roy's. What a classic. Imagine pulling up in your vintage Ford, the chrome gleaming under that neon sign, the smell of burgers and fries wafting through the air.
Ooh, yeah. And inside, the jukebox is cranking out golden oldies. There are photos of classic cars all over the walls.
And you can practically hear those travelers from back in the day swapping stories and sharing their love of the open road.
Ah, it's a true time capsule, a place where the past meets the present.
And you know what? Even though Roy's is just fictional, it perfectly captures what those countless real businesses were all about.
It really makes you want to jump in your classic car right now and hit the road.
Doesn't it? But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to the 1930s for a minute.
Okay, back to the 30s.
A time when America and Route 66 faced some real tough times.
You mean the Dust Bowl?
Exactly. At the time of hardship and displacement for so many. And it really impacted Route 66.
How so?
Well, for a lot of families fleeing the Dust Bowl, Route 66 became a lifeline, a way to get to a new life out west.
I could picture those old jalopies packed to the brim with belongings, heading west for a better future.
It's a far cry from the fun road trips we think of today.
It really speaks to the resilience of all the people who traveled Route 66, doesn't it?
It really does. And you know what? It actually impacted those businesses along the route, too.
Really?
All those migrants, they needed services, which meant a boom for those mom and pop businesses.
So even in the middle of hardship, there was a sense of community.
That's right. Those businesses were more than just gas stations and diners. They were beacons of hope.
It's a reminder that even in tough times, people find a way to help each other out,
Exactly. And as things settled down, Route 66 came out stronger than ever.
setting the stage for its golden age.
And speaking of setting the stage, we can't forget a big milestone in 1938.
What was that?
The entire length of Route 66 was finally paved.
Whoa, no more bumpy rides.
Nope, smooth sailing all the way from Chicago to LA.
That's a game changer. So that paved the way, literally, for all the car culture and road trips that Route 66 became known for.
Exactly. But before we dive into that,
Yeah.
we need to take a little detour to World War II.
Oh, right, the war. Didn't that pretty much bring travel to a standstill?
Well, yeah, civilian tourism took a hit, but you know what? Route 66 actually got a new job.
Oh, what's that?
It became this vital transport corridor for the military, moving troops and supplies across the country.
A lifeline for the war effort.
You got it. Convoys of trucks rumbling down the highway, soldiers hitching rides.
Families traveling to visit loved ones stationed at bases along the way.
Exactly. It was a time of sacrifice, but also a time of incredible resilience.
What about those businesses along the route? How did they do during the war?
Well, you might be surprised to hear that many of them actually did pretty well.
Oh, why is that?
Well, think about all those soldiers passing through, all the families visiting. They all needed places to stay, eat, and get their cars fixed.
That makes sense. Especially for the motels. I bet they were busy with families wanting to be close to their loved ones at the bases.
Exactly. Even those brilliant minds working on the war effort, they found themselves drawn to Route 66.
Oh, really? Give me an example.
Well, did you know that Richard Feynman, the physicist who was part of the Manhattan Project,
Yeah, I've heard of him.
well, he used Route 66 to go visit his wife. She was, sadly, ill in a sanatorium in Albuquerque.
Wow, that's a reminder that everyone was touched by this road, even those shaping history. It shows how deeply ingrained Route 66 is in America. And when the war finally ended, a whole new era of prosperity and possibilities began.
And for Route 66,
Yeah, what happened?
that's when it entered its golden age, a time of chrome dreams, roadside attractions galore, and the birth of fast food as we know it.
The 1950s, a time when America hit the gas and Route 66 became the place to be.
The ultimate road trip destination. But we'll have to save that story for next time.
You got it, so buckle up and get ready for more Route 66 adventures.
We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. We left off talking about Route 66 entering its golden age in the 1950s. It was a time of post-war prosperity. America was hitting the road in style.
Yeah, the economy was booming, families had more leisure time and money to spend, and car ownership was, like, skyrocketing.
It was the perfect time for a road trip revolution.
And Route 66 was the perfect destination, the perfect embodiment of that freedom and adventure that everyone associates with the 50s.
Absolutely. And think about it. This was the era of those tail-fin Cadillacs
Chrome-laden Chevys?
and all those iconic roadsters just cruising down the open highway.
Oh, I bet those classic cars had a huge impact on all those businesses and attractions that popped up along Route 66.
Oh, you know it. We're talking about those iconic diners.
Motels, those roadside attractions.
Route 66 became like a canvas for all these crazy entrepreneurial dreams.
Everyone was competing for the attention of those road trippers.
They had to get creative.
Yeah, so instead of just your average gas station or motel, you started to see these, like, larger-than-life attractions.
Right. Think about those giant muffler men statues.
Quirky trading posts.
Oh, yeah. Selling all sorts of souvenirs and weird trinkets.
And all those crazy neon signs promising a good night's sleep or a hot meal.
Oh, and of course, we can't forget about those wigwam motels.
Sleeping in a giant concrete teepee. Talk about a memorable road trip experience.
It's pure Americana. But those motels, they were more than just quirky roadside stops, you know?
Well, also.
They actually show this fascinating intersection of car culture and architecture.
That's interesting. Tell me more about that. I love learning about those connections between cars and, well, everything else.
Well, think about it. As more people had cars and road trips got more popular, motels had to adapt to all these travelers and their vehicles.
So you started seeing those motor courts, with parking spots right outside the rooms.
Yeah, no more lugging those heavy suitcases across a big parking lot.
Makes sense.
And the design of the motels themselves,
Oh, about them.
they started reflecting the look of the cars people were driving.
Really?
You know, those sleek, streamlined looks, you see the same curves and angles, those bold colors, and even chrome accents, all reflected in those roadside motels.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. It really shows how much car culture influenced all aspects of life back then, even the buildings.
And that connection between cars and those roadside businesses, it's even more obvious when you look at the rise of fast food.
The golden age of drive-ins and drive-throughs.
Yeah.
Route 66 definitely played a big part in that.
Families cruising in their big, beautiful cars.
They're hungry, but they don't want to waste time at a fancy sit-down place.
That's where the drive-in came in. Pull up in your car, order a burger and fries, and be back on the road in minutes.
And then car companies had to adapt too, didn't they?
You bet. They started designing cars with wider seats,
Lower profiles.
cup holders, dashboard trays, things like that to make it easier to eat in the car.
So car design was actually influenced by how people were eating. That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's like, what came first, the car or the drive-in?
It's a little bit of both, really. They kind of evolved together, and Route 66 was the perfect place for this new way of life.
We can't talk about Route 66 and fast food without mentioning some of those pioneers.
Oh, absolutely. Places like Red's Giant Hamburg in Missouri.
Didn't they claim to be the very first drive-through?
That's what they say. Imagine that. Pulling up in your 57 Chevy, ordering a burger without even leaving your car.
Must have been mind-blowing back then. And then there's the first McDonald's in San Bernardino, California.
Now, that was a real game changer. They took the drive-in concept and streamlined it, making a system that would, well, take over the world.
It's amazing to think that these giants, these global empires, got their start on Route 66.
It really shows the entrepreneurial spirit that thrived along this highway. And Route 66 itself, it became more than just a road.
It became an icon, celebrated in songs and movies.